for another part of our lesson this week in measurement, I want to let you think about the best ways and options we have when it comes to measuring different things. We talked in the previous video about different types and forms of measurement. I showed you different pictures of different things to use that we use to measure. So I just wanted to keep your brain juices flowing about that. And I wanted to show some things up here and let you think in your brain what would be the best way to measure. If we were going to the gas station and we were going to fill our tank up with gas, how would we measure that? Would we take one of those small little measuring cups in which to measure that? No, we wouldn't. We would use, to measure something large like that for capacity, we would either use the gallon measuring or liter, depending on if you were using standard or customary or metric. So when you're measuring a capacity of holding something, a large liquid, then you would think of that. If we were measuring our kitchen table, would we think about measuring our kitchen table in lengths of inches, feet, yards, miles, or centimeters, meters, kilometers? How would we use that? What would we think about in measuring that? And that would determine what tool we use to measure it. And probably for the average kitchen table, you would either want to know it in feet or inches or something like that. So you probably use a yardstick or a meter stick to measure your kitchen table. You may want to know it in feet, so you could use a metric ruler or a customary ruler if you wanted to know it in a smaller increment. What about if you were going to take a little bit of cough medicine? What would you use to measure that? Would you take that great big gallon jug or that liter container that I showed you yesterday or in that previous video to measure your cough medicine? No, you wouldn't. You'd use a little eyedropper or a little small container that would be in ounces or in milliliters to measure a small amount of cough syrup. Ounces in customary, milliliters in metric. What about if we were going to the mall? If we were going to measure the distance to the mall? Is that something we'd set out and do in inches or centimeters? I don't think so. That's something that, for most of us anyway, unless you live right next door to the mall, is a distance away. So we would measure that either in miles or kilometers as our measuring tool. So I want you to think about what's the best way to measure, what's the best tool, what's the best unit in which to measure that. What about if I was measuring my weight? If I was measuring my weight, I'd use some type of a scale to measure my weight. And if I was using customary, I would measure my weight in pounds. If I was using metric, I would use to measure my weight. On the other hand, if I was measuring potato chips, much lighter to weigh, I would probably use a little bit different, maybe one of those pan balance scales that would be a little bit more sensitive to a lighter weight. And I would probably measure that not in pounds, but maybe in ounces and in milligrams. So I just want you to think about the different ways that we measure and the units that we use.